Hello and welcome to another educational video brought to you by Tree Wealth Advisors. My name is Christina Perez, and today we're going to be talking about the importance of starting to invest early. First, a general disclosure. This video was made for educational purposes only and should not be seen as specific investment advice. In this video, we're going to be reviewing the time value of money, simple versus compound interest, and then a real-world example, as well as 2024 contribution limits specific to a 401k or employer-sponsored retirement plan, and how to save or tips for saving during volatile and uncertain times. So first, it's important to understand the time value of money so that you can understand why you want to save and invest. The time value of money really just means that a sum of money is worth more now than that same amount of money in the future. Why? Because of inflation. But therefore, if a sum of money in the future will be worth less, therefore delaying an investment would mean that's an opportunity lost. Why again is because inflation erodes purchasing power. And therefore, $1 today is not going to be the same as $1 tomorrow. And your money can only grow if you invest it. The time value of money calculation is pretty straightforward. You take the amount of money that you invest, which is also called the principal or present value, and then you take the assumed rate of return of the investment. Of course, the rate of return that you expect is typically based on the strategy. And there are various different strategies. This video is not about that. And then lastly, you take the investment time frame and whether you're going to be making additional contributions or if not, just that time period. And when the interest gets credited is also important. For example, that means if you have a loan or an investment that only will pay dividends monthly or let's say annually, that would not be as good as if it was paying out monthly because then you're getting more interest sooner to then continue to build interest on. So those are just some of the things to keep in mind. And as we mentioned, there's two main types of methods for earning interest. That is simple and compound. You'll see the graph here represents, or the orange line represents compound interest, which we all would love to be or have that. And then simple interest is a little more exactly what it sounds like, straightforward and simple. And that's why it simply increases at a steady pace as opposed to compounding. You'll see it starts off the same as simple, but then eventually, because you have your investment then growing or earning the same amount of interest, and any interest you receive gets added to the principal and then is receiving interest on that new principal amount. That is why it can significantly increase as time goes on. So just diving a little bit further into simple interest. So if we look at this example, the principal invested is $200. The annual rate of return assumed is 3%. The investment time frame or period is 2 years. And in this example, the interest is paid out once at the end of the year. So that is why the first year calculation, you'll see we take the $200 principal, multiply it by the 3% rate of return, and get an interest payment of $6 for the first year. And in year two, you take the same principal amount and the same time frame, the same 1 year, and get the same $6. So therefore, for 2 years or in 2 years, the total interest is only $12. Compare that to compound interest. So same example, $200 invested, 3% rate of return, 2-year time frame. The first year interest is going to be the same because we have that same starting point. However, notice that in year two, then the principal becomes 206. And that is why, even multiplying by the same rate of return and time frame, he actually earned, or this person earned 18 cents more than year one. And as I mentioned, the first few years, you can't really see the benefit of compounding, but as time goes on, that is when the magic can really happen. And how much of a difference does it make whether you start early or delay the investment? So in this example, we are looking at two individuals, one who started saving at 25, which is Chris. And Chris is the blue line on the graph. And Jennifer begins investing or saving at age 35. So they both invest $100 a month, and they ideally have the same investment strategy and are receiving a 5% rate of return, compounding. So if Chris begins that same $100 a month savings contribution and just continues that until he is age 65, at that point, his investment would be $162,000. Meanwhile, Jennifer, who started at 35 with the same type of investment plan, $100 a month with the same expected return, her investment at 65 would only be $89,000. Therefore, Chris's balance is nearly double Jennifer's, and he only contributed $12,000 more of his own money. So think about that. Almost double at age 65, and he really only put 12,000 more, right? Those 10 years that he was contributing where she wasn't, and that totals 1,200 per year for 10 years equals the 12,000. And here are some important limits to keep top of mind. And this is specifically for your 401k. Some of you may have IRAs that have separate limits for 2024. And you can definitely take advantage of both of these vehicles, a 401k and an IRA. Be mindful of the deductibility and income limits for Roth and traditional IRAs. But for your 401k in 2024, you would be able to defer up to $23,000 if you're under the age of 50 into your 401k, whether that be pre-tax or Roth. We have another video coming up about those different types of contributions, and there's pros and cons to both. If you're over 50 for 2024, you can actually contribute up to $30,500 because of the catch-up contribution. And the total annual contribution limit, which would include your contributions and your employer contributions, would be up to $69,000 into your 401k. And here are the 2024 IRA limits. So you are able to contribute up to $7,000 if you are under the age of 50, and if you're over the age of 50, you can contribute up to $8,000. Again, be mindful of Roth IRA income limits and traditional IRA deductibility limits, which are impacted if you are a 401k participant and are married. And lastly, we know these are uncertain and volatile times, but it's important to keep in mind that the sooner you begin to save, the longer your investment will have to grow and compound. And again, the main message of this video is for compounding growth, the longer you have your money invested, that is going to be one of the key components to benefiting from compounding growth. And the general rule of thumb for emergency savings, and this you would want to keep, in a very liquid, safe investment, a cash equivalent. And the rule of thumb is you should have 3 to 6 months of your total living expenses if you're a W-2 employee. And when faced with uncertain, volatile times, you should consider growing that emergency fund for any unforeseen expenses. And again, with a conservative strategy that's not going to lose value, meaning your emergency fund shouldn't be invested in stocks that can fluctuate significantly day to day. Instead, you should consider, instead of investing more in stocks, you should consider more or putting more into your savings and trying to at least meet that 3 to 6 month living expense goal for your emergency fund. If you have any questions or want to discuss your specific situation with any of the advisors on our team, here's our contact information and feel free to reach out.